Being 5:15, I call the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag
of the United
States of America, the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move. Second.
Motion been made by Mike and seconded by Tim to adopt the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we'll move on to considering of the contract of Wolf River Lawyers. Chad?
Yep.
We'll do
So
this, well, this one and 3 at the same time.
Yeah, 2 and 3 are going to kind of go hand in hand. So I'll start off with kind of number 2. So as the council should be aware, City Attorney Earl Waters has chosen not to run for re-election. When Earl announced that decision several years ago, the council decided back in 2019 with ordinance 1382 to change how the city attorney is chosen. Before that time, the current matter was to have it chosen by election, but then after that ordinance was adopted, the next round after Earl's current term, the city attorney, according to ordinance, city attorney shall be appointed by the mayor, subject to the confirmation of the council to serve for infinitive term. So a month or 2 ago, I sent out an RFP to our local attorneys asking for proposals on attorney and city attorney services, legal services. We had 1 response back. That was from Wolf River Lawyers, Keith Stegbauer. In your packet was a letter and his proposal for that service. We did set it up that it would be a set price for pretty much for the entire service instead of an hourly rate. I think that's going to be a lot better, that we don't have to worry about contacting every minute and getting them, worry about those minutes charging up for every hour of service. So as you can see in his letter, we did ask him to provide other municipalities that he currently serves, and he's indicated city of Clintonville, city of Shawano. He would be for us as well, town of Washington, village of Bear Creek, and village of Embarrass. So definitely has municipal attorney experience. That was one thing I was just worried about, to make sure that we do have someone who knows municipal law. It's way different than a attorney dealing with divorces and things like that. So, so there's his proposal in your packet. The only thing with Keith's appointment would be he currently represents the city of Clintonville on the 2nd Tuesday of every month. Their council meeting is that same night as our council meetings traditionally. So we would not be able to have him here if we kept our council meetings on the 2nd Tuesday of the month. So we brought in Keith, I don't know, about a week ago. We sat down internally and with the mayor. We talked about expectations, just make sure we're all on the same page, and we felt it was going to work. And I'm comfortable making the recommendation to the mayor for moving forward with Keith. But like I said, we would not have him here if we had our council meeting still on the 2nd Tuesday of every month. So we talked that out. We said, hey, can we go on the 2nd Wednesday of every month while he represents Shawano that night? So then we talked about maybe discussing if you guys would be interested in moving the council meetings to the 3rd Tuesday of every month. There's some pros with that. Number one, that would give staff another week to type up the minutes from the committee meetings. Sometimes it's a crunch to try to get the Parks and Rec, Public Works, and Finance and Personnel committee meetings, the minutes all typed up by the Friday, so you guys can see it in the packet for the council meeting. So that would give us a little bit more time with that. And it would give April a little bit more time when doing the bill list, because a lot of times she's doing the previous month. And if that first day of the month is in midweek, I mean, we're not seeing some of those bills to the last second. So she's crunching to try to get that bill list in the council packet by that Friday. It'll kind of give us a little bit more time there, but
Elections too.
elections, yeah, depending on what week the election is, yeah.
They're on 2nd Tuesday sometimes.
And sometimes I think we looked at that, some depending on the 3rd Tuesday and the 3rd Monday,
Mhm.
depending on how it works out. So I guess what we're looking at right now, Like I said, the ordinance calls for this to be a mayor appointment, subject to the confirmation of the council. So moving forward, if you guys are comfortable moving forward tonight, it would be on the council agenda in the mayor's report as a confirmation for the appointment plus approving. And then I guess we got to talk about the discussion about moving the city council meeting to a different day to accommodate him, because we definitely want an attorney at the council meetings. That's a plus, you know, having that legal representation at the council meetings.
So two things I would like to point out. Chad did talk about the hourly versus the yearly salary. As he recommended, and I would ditto, that we pay the yearly fee. That way, not every single time you call them, you have to wonder if we're gonna be charged, because once you hit a certain minimum, then you get charged exponentially from attorneys after that. But, so that dollar amount is $40,000 a year. And then the other positive to having them represent us is we won't just have Keith. So there is another attorney in the office who also backs him up in case, let's say, he's on vacation or he's out at the office and we can't reach him. So we would have somebody else to call.
What do you currently pay right now?
Page 28.
But with that also, we are getting more services.
We are.
We're gonna keep a lot more stuff in-house instead of seeking outside counsel.
And an example of that was brought up during the meeting was the TID contracts that we're currently going through.
The developers agreement.
Yep, so developer agreement, he felt comfortable that he could do those moving forward once we would retain him as an attorney. So that would be a big savings moving forward.
And he defines what his firm would, what services his firm would provide. It doesn't do like bond counsel. It doesn't do personnel issues, which Earl didn't do that anyway. I mean, we had to find specialty attorneys for some of those specialty type situations. That's been past practice as well. But it's nice having someone locally. I think like the city of Wapaka, I think they use an attorney from a different city. So, I mean, it is nice to have someone who knows New London and the flavor of New London and such.
I would make the motion that we hire Steckbauer attorney to be the legal representative for the city.
Second. Motion's been made by Bob, seconded by John to consider a contract with Wolf River Lawyers. All those in favor?
All right. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Also needed to, what about the council meeting one? Do we gotta?
Any discussion with that? Any thoughts? Where do you guys want to go with that?
I was just kind of curious. So it's an annual fee of 40,000. Won't go over that. Or $190 an hour and 75 for staff.
Correct,
So those are the two options.
correct.
Yes,
And there was no other outfits that were interested.
this was the only proposal we received, correct? And I sent it out to all the attorneys I knew who practiced in New London. I went to the chamber's website and whoever was a chamber member for that. And then I went just in the Google and I tried to find anybody, you know, so I sent everyone a notice that we were looking, the RFP.
And then
And not everybody practices municipal law. I mean, it's,
we used to pay Lou Waters 28,000 a year annually.
You are correct.
Thank you.
And I think once you hit the valley, $190 an hour might not even touch somebody. So if we start looking at other firms, I think, I really feel like, you know, that price in particular is quite reasonable, 190.
in an elected position and an appointed position, there's a little bit of difference. When you're being an elected, you're not going to get your full amount. You're doing it for, I'm an elected attorney that's helping your practice, you know, I'm elected in that aspect.
We're gonna get more of a bang for our buck.
How long is this contract?
I think I set it up for 1 year, if I remember right. I know I put it in the RFP to ask for 1 year plus the option to renew for 1 year.
And sometimes if it's silent, maybe you didn't put that in there. It's just at the option of.
After 1 year. Yep. But for the initial term, 1 year, and then 2 years after that, but it just means. And you can see his philosophy for his charges between Clintonville's population, 38,000, Shawano's population, 42,000. Or sorry, population 3,900, Clintonville's population 4,500. So we're stuck in the middle with that. So he's charging us in the middle because we're in the middle of this population group.
That includes, they gotta be here for court nights too, right?
Yep.
If needed for court case.
Yeah. Yeah. At the bottom.
Municipal court prosecutions.
That's a huge amount of time right there that we don't see.
Yeah, about number 3 there. Talk about moving that council meeting.
Any thoughts?
Myself, I guess I wouldn't mind if we went to the third Tuesday, that what we were talking about.
That still leaves us a week without any meetings, so.
Yeah,
Yep.
like you said, if it gives the staff time to do stuff, I guess, that's better anyway, I guess, I'm thinking.
So that'll change committee meetings as well, or?
Nope.
No.
Committee meetings will all stay the same.
Yeah.
It would just be the council meeting.
But see, if I may say something, with the county board meetings the third Tuesday versus the council meeting being the second Tuesday. Reason for that, there's a lot more committees with the county than there is with the city. So the first 2 weeks of the month are generally committee meetings. And the third Tuesday is the full board meeting,
Okay. What time is that?
9 in the morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's not a conflict.
No, not at all. No, but that's same with having the council meetings. You have committee meetings first part of the month. And then the first week of the month and then
A break.
We did look at Thursday as a possibility. However, vacations come up with Thursday, Friday, as well as Monday. So keeping it on a Tuesday was a,
I would think a third
Good option.
Tuesday would be fine.
Well, I think one advantage would be if you needed to have subsequent piggyback committee meetings, or you have a committee meeting, say you're interviewing for a contract of some sort, you got one group in on one night, and it allows you to have an extra committee meeting in there before council,
Following week.
which gives you some flexibility and less need to have special council meetings and stuff.
Sure.
I think it'll work.
I'd make the motion that we go to the third Tuesday instead of the second Tuesday.
A second.
A motion's been made by Bob, seconded by Tim. We change the meeting from the second Tuesday of each month to the third Tuesday of each month, beginning in May. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Finance Director report. Judy?
All right. So last month when we met, I said I did not have the wastewater treatment year-end budget and that I would present that tonight. So this is what the estimated retained earning looks like at the wastewater treatment plant. So we ended 2020 with retained earnings at about 1,678,000. The revenue for 2021, 1.83 or 839 million. Our maintenance costs were 492,000. Operation of the plant, 870,000. We also have one note over there, and that cost was 147,000. And then we also still have some remaining bond funds from the project over there at the wastewater treatment plant. So that's 277,000. So we have a nice healthy retained earnings estimated at the end of 2021 of $1.730 million. We do have some of these dollars committed. We have a lead service sewer water roll commitment of $250,000. We worked with the utility at one time when they were going through all the lead services. And they had came in and requested that we put some money aside in case we come across some of these lead services. So as we come across them, that we can replace them. And at that time, we did approve that commitment. Every year we put $60,000 away in an equipment fund, so we're just continually adding to that, and we're at $200,000 there. We also put away $160,000 for Maine, and 40,000 is what I feel like off the top of my head for laterals each year. What I'd like to do is continue to commit those funds for the purpose each year when they're unused, so that when we're going into our streets in the next 5 years, that we can actually cash fund some of those sewer replacements and lateral replacements. So I will continue to add to those dollars. I wouldn't expect in the next 5 years, I'm going to think that we're going to use a lot of those dollars, but if there's any remaining funds, I will earmark those for that particular purpose. We had a truck with a crane that we have committed. And the reason for that is we haven't been able to get that piece of equipment yet. So that money is sitting there. And then we have an auto valve for a storage truck that needs to be replaced yet. I think we're still waiting for parts on that. So that's $12,000. So I'm committed at this time about $1 million, almost $1.1 million. We do have some dollars flowing in yet from the Division Street project, about $9,000. Warner Allen, I wasn't positive when I put this together. I'm not sure those actually went out yet. I will update that accordingly once I get those numbers. The project list over at the plant is the Mill Street project is a big one we're looking at for some funding out of the wastewater treatment plant. Also redoing the water system. These are not written in stone. Remember, they're just some anticipated project moving forward in the future. We like to keep lists so that we don't forget what we were thinking that we might want to do in the future. And then it gives us vision and goals and all those kinds of things moving into the future. And then we have our remaining bond funds, that $277,000 I talked about. And Ben is looking to upgrade the lift station. He said that one's almost done, lift station 1, and then lift station 4. He has some electrical that he's, I believe, changing to 208V, whatever that means.
It's updating the electrical system to the current voltage.
So I think it's a voltage increase. And then he has a step screen that he's looking at possibly doing with some of those funds also. I realize that it's a negative dollar amount, but at the end of the day, we will pull funds if we need them from another source, and or things will come in under budget. We'll see how that all flows through. So the wastewater treatment plant is in good shape moving into 2022, keeping in mind that we will be doing a rate study this year. And there is a project that Ben is looking at over there. So as we get through that rate study, that will be presented to committee and council, and then we'll talk about where we go with the wastewater treatment plant and rates forward. Any questions on that?
Is that 200,000 for that, the sewer truck, is that for that, the green machine, the green one?
The heavy duty sewer truck. So
The green one, I'm just looking at.
Yep.
Yes.
Sewer trucks. the
those
green-
things are to me.
We call it the green pickle.
Right, and there you go. That's what that's what Ben calls it, the green pickle.
The green pickle.
But apparently it costs a ton of money when we replace it. So we want to keep a reserve. So if something happens, we have some dollars put aside, or we work ourselves into the purchase of, is what we're hoping.
The price of that is more than 200,
Yes,
know that.
yes.
Okay.
So that's why each year we put $60,000 in the budget, and then we move it into reserves.
Yeah,
So that we're
okay.
moving ourselves in the direction of replacement.
About that pickle trucks from Hamilton's.
Yeah, right.
All right, and then the rest of our presentation on our monthly reports, We are actually in the month of January, so there really is not a lot going on within our budgets at this time. I will just point out, and that's wrong. Percentage. I can see that right now. The police department is not at 102%. It looks like it's calculating wrong across the page here, because you can see they're at 2.4 million and they spent 252. So that's clearly not calculating properly. So I will get that fixed for next time. The one that I would like to point out is insurance. And as we know, we have to pay insurance in January of each year. And that's why that one sticks out like a sore thumb, that we have 61% of that budget already spent. But otherwise, I didn't see anything else that stuck out. I think I put community development, and the reason is at 39,980, a lot of what this is dues. We have some dues that we pay to the Fox Communities, Appleton for the Fox Communities. You remember the name of that? This is for your community development dues.
Oh, that's,
Well,
yeah, there's some
I guess
dues
it-
that we're involved with.
Yeah, we
like
have
the
a lot of
County
dues that we
Economic Development
pay
Corporation.
for economic development is
Yeah,
what I want to
yeah.
say.
Yep.
And a lot of those are paid in the beginning of the year. So sometimes these will appear high too, because there's a number of things, dues and subscriptions that are paid in January, but in total, we're still only at 1% of our budget, so nothing else stuck out to me at this time in January, of course. We're only in. Any questions on any of that? No, the detail is provided to you guys if you want to ever take a look at that. Debt service too is high, but we pay money for debt service when we actually schedule our debt service. We pay when we know we have money, so we just collect taxes in January. So we'll have payments due in like January and March when we know that we're more cash. We have more cash in the bank, and then again in November. So that's why you'll see that one a little higher. It's not that it's gonna go over budget, it's just that we paid it earlier in the year versus later in the year. All right, revenues too, nothing too exciting here either. Also just 1 month of revenue flowing in. You will see next month, our property tax collection being booked at the end of February. So some of those dollars came in, but I will book those in February. Shared revenue comes in partially in July, most of it in November. That's what I was just talking about, how we set up our debt so that we know when our major revenue flows are. And one of them is shared revenue, and that's mostly in December. So revenue actually surpasses expenses at this time, and we're at 1.94% in revenue. Any questions on any of those? All right. Then assigned and unassigned fund balance. Last month, when I came in to have you approve, as you can see, your line item number 5 is an approval of the resolution assigning fund balance. I realized that we went through this last month also, but I had some updates. I didn't have some of the park and rec and some of our funds that we hold in trust updated at that time. So I highlighted the ones that we're going to update. And another one that I just found out I needed to update today was the capital projects reserve. So that's capital projects reserve is actually going to be 864,206 here where the 777 is. And I didn't update it on your actual sheet. So when we do this assigned and unassigned fund balance here, I highlighted the ones that I changed from the previous month, but it's also going to include a change in this capital projects reserve. We finally received our FEMA payment from the 2019 storm. And that payment to us was in excess of $87,000 of our estimate. So we did a very conservative estimate in 2019 because we had no idea if we'd ever receive these funds. We've never went through this process. We've never had to go through this process before. Chad went through a ton of paperwork and got that over to the federal government and it flowed through the state. And finally, after 2.5 years, we finally saw that check come in yesterday.
Oh.
And it was $87,000. So we're gonna take that entire dollar amount and we're gonna put it into capital projects. So now we're gonna increase our capital projects reserve at the end of 2021 to 864,208. But
Alright.
as we make that motion in our next line item, I just wanted to point that out now as I go through my assigned and unassigned fund balance. We'll make that increase and we'll specifically say that within the notes of the finance minutes that we're gonna change that one and increase it based on those FEMA dollars. So.
Did you tell me what the interest from that money while they had it?
Right? We're good at Bob.
Half the time, we don't even know who to talk to. They change people so all the time. And then this one more piece of paper that we need
That's-
signed and one
I was
more
gonna
piece
say,
of
Chad-
paper.
Chad
Eh.
was chasing his tail with
Oh, my
the different
God.
Started with the
requirements.
federal government and then it filtered down to the state, but then the state just implemented a brand new software package to track it all. And it just was like, oh, you gotta sign, you gotta approve this document, do that. Oh, you gotta play catch up and approve the last version of that same document.
Was it cash or cryptocurrency?
It was over and over and
It
over.
was a check and I dropped it and it did not bounce.
So finally, we can say that our 2000.
I
our
know.
July 2019 FEMA storm
Done.
finally done.
Good job.
Good job. Good
So
job,
the
Chad.
the funds that you applied for were, it was to fix damage from the storm or?
You are
Reimbursements.
correct.
So we had a ton of costs for, and we were getting other checks, there's all these category A, category B, category Z. And depending on if it was protective services or, debris,
Administrative.
Yeah.
administration, debris cleanup. So a lot of it was debris cleanup. We had to have DTAC come in and help us pick up all the debris. That was a huge expense. And then we had expenses for tub grinding of the debris, the wash. And we got a $50,000 DNR grant to help with that one. But yeah, it was just reimbursement for a lot of the
So
expenses. we paid.
originally, where did the money come from?
Fund balance. So I took it out of our liability reserve, our 131 fund. So it didn't affect our general fund balance at all. And then I set up a receivable for it. And I worked through the auditors with all of this. So they've been asking every year. I'm like, Chad, the auditors are gonna say, where's our money? Where's our money? So we set it up in a 131 fund, so it would not affect our general fund. And now that we have the money, I can reimburse that 131 fund. So basically, we're borrowing from ourselves. And now we'll pay ourselves back. And then we can take the remaining funds and I will move them into actually into the capital projects fund. And we'll utilize those funds.
I don't want to go through another FEMA process when we're
No more storms.
in
huh?
unemployment, but
Yeah.
we've learned a lot.
Yep.
Going through the process. I mean, there's a ton of paperwork and ton of procedural things.
I had a lot of
Go through it
paper.
once.
Yep, we had also MPIC, which is our insurance company. So I also submitted a lot of detailed information to them and they did that reimbursement to us. Actually, they were just hounding me because they don't like anything to go over a year. So they paid us back within that year. So remember, when we're estimating, again, you want to be really conservative because I don't want to sit my fund over here with not enough money eventually down the road. I always like to make sure that we have a little bit of cushion. And then the $50,000 that Chad actually wrote that second grant for, we didn't know when we set that up. So I think that's where I'm getting a little bit more than I would have anticipated this to be. And I'm like, we're not going to take it, but I think that's why it's at 87,000. I would have anticipated the difference to be more like $20,000. So there was some things that popped up after the fact, but I thought I'm just going to leave that where it's at because there was no promises from FEMA at how much they were going to ever reimburse us. So just to be, like I said, very conservative about where that number was. So now we're able to add that dollar into the mix of all of the projects that we're looking at. And that was one of the things that I did talk about last time that I'm going to present to you hopefully next month. And we'll go back into all our street projects and then we'll look at our revenues. So now I can add that $87,000 in the mix of revenues and hopefully continue to drop the amount of bonding that we have to do when we do Shawano Street or downtown here.
And some of that extra revenue
not
that we
Johnson.
got might have been because we could apply for all my time that I spent on it. So that was money we could capture. We had volunteer groups come in to help clean up. We could capture that as revenue,
Capture
even though they
that.
volunteered, we didn't pay them, but we can capture that as revenue. So
Chad
there were
went
some
down
other
to the high
things.
school and had all the kids.
Yeah, they're all coming in, they're signing in and out. And so we tried to
It
capture.
was
as
a
much as
lot
we
of
can.
work, yep. Not that we want to go back through that again,
I don't
but
want to do that.
yeah. So we will put that in the mix and hopefully we hear from the neighborhood investment grant coming on. We're really going to talk about that. I'm hoping not to jinx it, but within the next couple days here, and then I will bring in all of the projects we're looking at again. So that's in front of you and you can look at it again, our downtown here, Oshkosh Street back here. We have new estimates for back here. And then bring this revenue and add this revenue in on our revenue side and the expenditures and look what we're looking at for bonding in 2024. So we can continually take a look at that. And I think it's always good information for you guys, for your constituents when you're out there and people are asking us, what are we doing? So I will get that updated and put that back in front of you next month. Wasn't quite ready to do that either. And two things and we're kind of still waiting on to see where they go. So back to assigned and unassigned fund balance. There's the capital project reserve. Again, I will be updating this capital projects reserve number going into next month. I'm actually, I think, going to give it its own line item so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And anyone not know that that's where those dollars came from, just in case something happens and somebody ever questions like, where did that dollar amount come from and why was it added? And then here's our list of projects that were not finished that we hopefully can get done in 2022. And basically this is just taking the assigned fund balance from the resolution that we did last month. And I put it in as the starting balance. So they all should match from the resolution to our starting balance. And then I estimate where I believe that we're going to be at the end of 2022. So at this point, it's just providing you with an estimate of where I believe that we're going to be ending 2022. So
Cable TV will have that big project we're gonna bid out for AV upgrades, so that we're not seeing that right here, right?
nope. So if you can give me some kind of an estimate, I will, I can put AB,
Upgrades.
yep. And then I can put a price in there. If you just give me some kind of estimate and that keeps it in my mind too, to ask you if we've seen any bills or where we're going to be at with that. So we make sure that we're keeping these dollars at what we anticipate them to be at the end of 2022.
I just had one question. With the Newton Blackburn Trail, the 12,000, does that go towards engineering?
Yes.
It does. Yep.
So then after this year, the project should be complete and we won't be paying into that?
Till we decide if we want to do phase two, like we talked about last night. So this should clean up what we're looking to do this year. And then we'll have to figure out phase two.
So you won't see that on the list going into 2023. All right, so cable debt service, I did add some money to that last year. We had some money in there and we have to reserve those. That's where I anticipate boat launch to be. So that's starting to add up quite quickly and nicely. So maybe a project could be, another project could be thought of for, to be utilized with those boat launch dollars. Downtown facade or economic development, there's some money put aside for that committee. And the revitalization and then the retirement reserve, not a lot of change on this page. These are where I did some changes that I highlighted on the ordinance that I got after the fact. So like the Hatton Stadium and some disc golf and new pro and things of that nature. And then our unassigned fund balance, I anticipate at the end of 2022 to be about 3 million. Policy states we have to be 25% of operational, so that's about 1.85 million. But we try to stay closer to our shared revenue just in case something were to happen and we wouldn't receive that. So at 2.174 million. Any questions on any of those? Then we move into wheel tax. In January, we actually do not have any money collected for wheel tax. The first money that's collected for wheel tax is in February for January. So it's a month behind. So there isn't much going on within wheel tax. I can tell you at the end of 2021, I anticipate $125,000 to be remaining in that fund. And then we're anticipating some LRIP dollars. So we do have some money within this fund to utilize. And then again, here is the list of things that were potential projects that we're looking at to utilize some of this funding.
What is the LRIP funding?
LRIP stands for Local Road Improvement Program. So that was a grant that I wrote for, we did the one block section of Shawano Street over here last year. I can't apply for it until the contract is final and complete. And what we're waiting for, and our engineer just requested the final bill from the contractor. That contract for Shawano Street and Warner Allen were the same contract, and I can't apply for the funds until the contract's done. So we were waiting for some final, there was a couple little things they had to finish up. So they got those done now. We're waiting for that final bill. Once we pay that final bill and I show that the contract's done, I can apply, we can gain that LRIP funding from the state. So it's a grant, pretty much.
Nice.
Called Local Road Improvement Program.
So we'll put that in. There's gonna be a nice little fund balance in there for us to utilize for something next year. All right, then we have the bonding. I know the brush truck is in progress. I believe it came in at Plock and then it had to go somewhere else that because what's his name over at Plock came in and I signed the paperwork and then it shifted off to somewhere else to have something put on. I don't know, but it's going to be way more expensive than this. So closer to, I believe, $200,000. So that still has to come out of this bonding. But a lot of this is complete. Warner Allen has about $10,000, maybe 20 left to expense on that one.
Might be more like 10, but yeah, there's a little bit left. That retainage
Yeah,
we
I
just
think
talked
there was
about.
some engineering though yet too, that
Could
like
be.
15 maybe, something like that. And then the roofs are done. And then the Newton Blackmore Trail will be the last item to come out of here.
Except the library roof,
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Yep, the library roof is not complete.
because we can't get shingles that we want.
And give them the match, huh?
You know, we put an architectural shingle, or not architectural shingle, I think they call it a luxury shingle, but we put a shingle that matched the old style on the south side. But now we need to replace the north side, the old Carnegie side, and
Can't get them.
yeah, and I think if we put a traditional residential shingle on that side, it's gonna look terrible, so we're waiting.
Question, Judy, on the projects.
I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Mhm.
I know this question was probably should have been asked at capital projects when Chief was here, but $8,200 for the jail cell toilets and sinks. That seems high. I mean, is it like black granite from Africa or something or? I don't.
I'm guessing that they have to be so
Special.
specific, just like their uniforms. I mean, if you go to purchase a regular uniform, it costs $10. If you go to get a police uniform, it's $300. So I'm guessing the specifications of what those toilets have to look
Somebody-
like
I haven't
and what,
There in a while, they might be stainless steel.
I'm sure they are.
Porcelain, I don't think, I
Yeah,
can't remember, I haven't been in there.
I know.
All right,
Thank
who wants to get
goodness. I haven't been there.
arrested?
All right, who can tell us what they look like?
I think they're stainless steel.
I'm
I would
assuming
think
they
are.
have to be stainless steel. There's
Right,
porcelain
so
you can break.
I'm
Might be more
guessing there was a
expensive.
really
Yeah, break and use that.
specific
Yeah, they did
specifications.
some of the county.
Can't pull
stainless
them
steel.
out, you know, so I'm sure that you have to, you can't have somebody who can go in there and pull that thing out of there.
Porcelain,
So,
they could crack and
Yeah.
break.
We get a field trip to the jail.
yeah, hey, maybe
I've never
next,
seen it.
me
Never seen it
either.
either.
I haven't even went over there
Next
to look
month's
at it.
agenda.
I should.
When they get them installed, I'd like to try one out.
Do something wrong, Tim, find out.
Well, they're installed, that's all done.
They're in.
I have
Yeah,
a-
that's done.
I have a question about the library roof.
Mhm.
If there's extra money in bonding, would it not make sense to redo the whole roof at some point instead of keep waiting and waiting and waiting and maybe have
Library
other
roof?
damage? Yeah.
We did half of it
Mhm.
4 years ago, 3 years ago. So we did the southern half 3 or 4 years ago.
Mhm.
And now the northern half has to be done. So once this is done, the whole roof will be completed within the last 5, 6 years, whatever it'll be. So, yep.
Keep waiting for shingles, we're never gonna match them. I guess I
Yeah.
wasn't here for the doing a half a roof at a time, which confuses me right off the bat, but
Because the section that we did was the newer section of the museum, and it wasn't, the older section that we have to do is asbestos. Which there's a whole thing about asbestos removal and things like that. And at that time, the roof was okay yet. We had a couple more years of life in it, so we just did half of it. So now we're waiting for the northern half, and I've been bugging our consultant, saying, all right, what you hearing? What are you hearing? I mean, we might have to come up with a different plan sometime down the road, but I'm hoping sometime those come back on the market.
So we do anticipate dollars also left over or remaining, I should say, in the bonding. And that will also be updated, and I'll put that in that project list that I present next week. I'll do some estimates on what we anticipate to utilize within this year, and then I will do an update on that. I know I have something in there, but I can't remember how much, but there was a great bid on that Warner Allen Road. That was, yeah, especially at this time. This was a little bit shocking, actually. So we'll see some savings within this bonding, and then we need to utilize those projects for capital. You have to utilize them for something that lasts longer than the bonding of 20 years. So we'll take a look at, and then, of course, that's going to be a road project. So we'll put that in the mix of revenue also, whatever's left in this. And then we did take out the trust fund loan. And that's for the roof replacement here in the council room in the North Bay, because we weren't allowed to bond for that. And then we'll look, we're also just thinking through this yet, also on the money that we talked about for the library project. So hopefully next meeting, we can have a discussion on those dollars too, and how that's gonna be paid out. Just a lot of things going on right now.
Library projects in the state trust fund? Is that what
Yep,
that-
that's where we took the money to give them partial of the 750,000 that we talked about.
Got it. Yep.
So this was their first payment, but we're just kind of waiting on some other things that are in the works at this time so none of that has happened yet. So that's why it has a 0 on it. So we're sitting on that for the time being. So I believe that's it for my finance. Any questions on anything? Anything else? Move on to the resolution, which is number 5, the resolution assigning fund balance. And again, the changes are the ones I highlighted in yellow. I went in and did more research on some of these dollar amounts. I know I had some dollars for books. I called in. I'm like, I don't think that should be in there. It was like $5,000. She's like, no, I utilized those funds. So I did that. I did a lot more digging on what these dollars were supposed to look like. So the only one that's different, that's not highlighted, will be this capital projects reserve, and that will move to 864,206.
So when it hits the council meeting, that'll be 864.
And I will have it highlighted. Yep, so it will be highlighted. And the reason, I guess I should give you a little background. The reason that I didn't know exactly what some of these were, some of them I were waiting on estimates for other people, but like the cable TV, that comes in so late that that actual payment I estimated for you, but it actually came in, like a week after I presented to you. So now I'm using the actual numbers. So I have to go through and do some estimation as I give you those, and then I like to true them up, I guess is what I'd call it, once I know the actual number.
can I get a motion to approve the resolution?
And then I'm also gonna put on that motion with the change of the capital projects reserve from 777,039 to 864,206. So I'll have that verbiage actually in the minutes.
Make that motion to approve the signed fund balance with those changes that Judy mentioned.
Second.
Motion's been made by Bob, seconded by Mike. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. All right, Finance Director's Report. Judy?
All right, so let's see, I'm talking about the month of January, so I spent time sending the paperwork, so once we close out our taxes, each month on the 15th, so the 15th of January, I have to call, it's called settle with the taxing jurisdictions. So the city has to cut a check to Fox Valley Tech, the school district, both counties in the percentage of amount of tax collection that we've collected to the end of December 31st. And then again, well, it usually ends up being February, but January 31st is a hard close. But we go into February a little bit with that collection. So then we close with them on January 15th and then February 15th. So I do that paperwork. 1099s were completed, W-2s were completed. I do a lot of year-end adjustments and estimates. Met with the wellness committee. We're taking a look at some PHA options. I prepared the statement of taxes and distributed them. Just a busy month with tax collection. Worked with Jill, a lot of reporting. A budget, our 2022 budget was entered in, and the department heads are encouraged to look at that to make sure it looks like what they think it's gonna look like. I had a civic board meeting. We talked about their financials and changing some reporting structure. And then I continue to make my way through the audit prep. So I have about 47 items that the auditors send me on a list of things that I need to get ready so that when they come in the door, first of all, we scan and send everything to them, which makes their time in the office less, which makes our costs less. So we scan and send everything to them. So a lot of the line items I have, so within our general ledger, let's say cash is $209,000. I have that, and then I have everything behind it to prove, or to show them that this is why it's 209,000, or, this is our accounts receivable and why is it that number? Well, then I give them every single receipt number and every single, and so that they can see why accounts receivable is accounts receivable. And then they go through and audit us. So it's time consuming to get the revenues that we collect within the 2022 year back into 2021, those that we have to get back into that year. Because if it's meant for 2021, it has to go back into that year. And then we kind of move forward because it doesn't matter until we hit December of next year again. And then you have to move everything back. So that's what I'm spending most of my time on right now. So any questions? Comments?
When's your friend Phil gonna
concerns?
come in to see us again?
Phil?
Yeah.
Well, he's been around because we actually have, we've done 3 TIF districts in the last how many months? 6, maybe? So we've had TIF 4, 5, and 6. So we've seen actually a lot of Phil, just more online nowadays than
Yeah.
coming in person. So I'm not really sure if he'll present. No, because that TIF stuff goes out to planning commission and to us. And, oh yeah, he'll come to the council meeting,
So
Yep.
he'll come to the
April or May.
Usually in the
March
spring.
24th JRB meeting.
Yep, he'll be at the joint review board meeting.
Then he'll be at the planning commission. You'll see him at planning commission.
There you
on
go.
The 24th.
in
We
March.
just saw him today. We had a conversation with him
Yep.
today.
That's funny. Yeah, we see him
Give you
quite
the
a
good news then.
bit. We do conversate with him quite a bit right now. So yeah, we have all 3 of those still in development and working through a lot of that right now. So that's exciting stuff too. So. I don't say everything that I do because I don't want to bore you to death. It's, within my letters here, but I certainly don't sit in my room twiddling my thumbs. But yeah, there's a lot of things that go on, and those 2 districts are a lot of work, and we spend a lot of time working on them. I guess I just don't talk about them a lot.
That's a good point because we've been hinting at the proposed TID number 6 that we're working on. They're finalizing the project plans, and then the JRB Joint Review Board meeting will be on March 24th for the first process in that first meeting in that process, and they'll go to planning commission at that same meeting, or that same night. Then it'll go to council meeting for consideration in April. So that project plan is kind of getting in the works. We can send that out once we get that back from
Yep.
Phil, and then the next month we'll be proposing TID number 6 to you guys.
It's really, really a great option with what's happening in that district for the city also to get a project done that they've been looking at for a long time without utilizing taxpayer dollars. Or utilizing the increase of the value within an initiative. It's really win-win.
All right, any other questions? Motion to adjourn?
So move. Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.